Holiness is not just behavioral, it is the nature of God. And so when you're sharing his holiness, you're sharing in who he is, his nature. A lot of people get it twisted like it's no lipstick and long skirts. It's not that. Holiness is a posture of being set apart for God's use. It's this other than nature where you're not living common, where you recognize that there's something specific on you. And I'll say that to every woman that is watching this podcast. God has designed you uniquely for something specific, and that is to be other than. You're not like anybody else. I don't care how many people do what you do. Nobody will do it in the earth as God has intended for you to do it. And that's a part of you sharing in his holiness. The Bible talks about how he made us in his image and his likeness. And that's my prayer for you. How do I look and bear the image of God better? You do that by allowing the Lord to discipline you in a way that is specific to you.
I want everything he has for me. He has for me. Yeah. He's all given me permission.
Welcome back to Permission Talk. I'm Dr. Jackie, and I am so excited about this podcast episode. For all my day ones, thank you for joining in again. But all my newbies, I'm really grateful that you leaned in. And my prayer is that you'll go back and watch all the episodes that we've currently done. I believe that this content is really helpful for any woman that's deciding to live a new lifestyle of freedom. And I believe that that's so important. We really exist in this space to embrace, equip, and empower women to move forward in godly freedom. And godly freedom is different than what many people call freedom. And so we're really trying to give you biblical understanding of what God intended from the very beginning to continue to help you move forward in that. And so, man, I'm excited. We made it to a brand new year. Happy New Year. It's 2026, and it is my belief, it's my expectation that God is going to do some super special stuff this year. I can already sense that he's up to something, and I really do believe our expectation, what we believe, what we're saying to ourselves, even how we're posturing ourselves has so much to do with what we get out of a year. What you put in is what you get out. And so as you can see, I changed up the scenery a little bit. I actually wanted to bring you all into an intimate space. This is a place where I call my prayer room or my war room. My Devo time happens here. But more than just devotion, I would even say, in going further, the thing that the Lord has challenged me with in this particular space, which is why it's sacred, it's set apart from the other parts of my house, where this is a place that I only do this, is I want this space to be undivided devotion. I think it's one thing to have Devo time where you're catching it in your car, or you might be doing it in the midst of a lot of other things. But it's another thing when you quiet yourself and you pull away and you're saying, God, this time is devoted to you. I want to hear from you. I want you to say something that I haven't heard. And I really do believe that that is the thing that the Lord is after. He's really challenged me in this particular season to recognize as a daughter, there are only certain things that he can say, and only he can say. We do a lot of conversations around why it's so important to have community and making sure we're showing up to be our full self in various areas, this horizontal relationship. But nothing is more important, and nothing feeds your horizontal relationships, whether it's your marriage or your children or even the way you show up at work, more than what you're doing in your private time when nobody's watching. I generally come into this room where it's really early in the morning, before the kids got all their demands and before the emails are coming, to just pull away. And I want to give him undivided devotion. What I'll tell you in the moment that you start thinking about undivided devotion is, as you're getting used to that type of lifestyle, or you're getting used to that rhythm, don't set your standard or even your expectation of yourself too high. One thing that I do believe that is beautiful about our relationship with God is that we get to continue every single day perfecting that relationship. And so you might start coming into a space. Maybe it's your closet. Maybe you go for walks. Maybe it's your bathroom. I remember when I first had my boys, that was the only place I could get away to. So I don't want you to feel like that because I have a room or this is the way I do it. It's the way that you have to. But I do want you to know that it's important that you set aside an intentional time with him. And so I wanted to bring you into this space because this month I wanted to kick off our top of the year with focusing in on how we hear God, how we're setting our life in position and ourselves to be sure that nothing is disturbing our connection and our communication with him. Because what I will tell you is, when you live guided, you live according to a word from him daily, not just, oh, God gives me this word at the top of 2026, but from day to day, I want to know, God, what's the word? What are you saying for my life? In the Bible, there's a particular prayer that Jesus teaches his disciple where he says, give me this day my daily bread. And that's my prayer. My prayer is through this conversation, you'll find out how to live a lifestyle of getting daily bread. And this is my place where I just pause the noise. Sometimes I'm in here crying, y'all. Sometimes I'm laid out. Sometimes I'm raising a hallelujah. I got my worship going on and I'm literally just letting the song of the Lord bathe over me. There's no particular way, but it is necessary that you do pull away and have time with him. And so wanted to invite you into a space that is all about hearing from God, a time of fasting and prayer and intercession. And that's our topic for today. I wanted to read a particular verse over you. That has really been feeding my heart as I've been praying about this particular episode, because as I'm praying for myself, I'm also praying for the different things that the Lord has asked me to steward. And one of those things is this podcast. This is a platform and a stage, and I say it no different than my platform and my stage as being a mother or a wife. I'm responsible for what I'm able to give out. And what I love to tell many of the ladies that I have the opportunity to walk with is that you can't give what you don't have. So if I'm not pausing to receive something new from the Lord, if I'm not pausing to actually get out my frustrations or let God know my fears and being honest about where I am and how I am, I'll never really be able to get a fullest version of myself to the people that I have to serve. And so I was asking the Lord what particular verse brings to light how we pause at the top of this year to get a word from God. And one of the verses that he gave me was Jeremiah 33:3. And I'm going to read that over you because I believe it kind of sets the tone for how we make all this stuff work. Why we pray, why we fast, why do we pull away to have undivided devotion where we're not letting different things interrupt us. This is what Jeremiah 33:3 says. It says, call to me and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things that you do not know. Call to me. Call to me, call to me. And if you think about, I don't know, maybe you've been awaiting a phone call or promotion, or maybe you were hoping to get a job, or it's a really important phone call from a doctor's office. When you're getting ready to take a call that is very important, you don't stay amidst the noise. You have to pull away to make sure that you hear all the details and all the instructions. And this is why times of undivided devotion is so important. If I'm going to call to God, that's another way of saying that I'm just going to take a moment to pray and ask him, Father, this is what's going on. This is my heart. This is where I am. This is how I am. And those are things I keep saying because I ask myself that every morning when I get up. God, I want to take this moment to be really honest. I don't want this to be contrived. I don't want this to be cookie cutter. And I don't want to just say the thing that I think that you want to hear. What I have found with living with a God that is okay with my strength and my weaknesses is that he delights in me trusting him with my full heart. And that is my invitation to you, that as you call to God, as you pull away and posture yourself to just lift to him, Father, in the top of this year, I want to know, what word do you want me to build my life on? That's the life that is guided and not guessing, where you're not just doing things like, I hope this works, or I'm going to start this endeavor because I believe this is what other people are doing. But like, no, God, if you fashion me and form me, you fashion me and form me to be an answer to the earth as a word from you. And because of that word, you have specific instruction for me to be able to live that out. And so a part of me living that out is going back to my maker, going back to the God that fashioned and formed me to say, what do you have for me in this particular year? And one of the actual biblical verses that come to mind when I think about getting a word for your year is that the word of God is a lamp into your feet. It comes close. Like when you think about turning on a lamp, it's intimate, it's close to you, but it highlights whatever is around you. And there are times, there are what I would call unholy thoughts, or even things that you're saying to yourself or about yourself that's happening, that when you raise the light in your room with a lamp being right beside you or a light on your path, it'll straighten out the crooked places. It'll keep you from falling into pit holes. It'll keep you on the right path that the Lord is calling you to. And so I'm asking you that in this time together, we're going to do it a little different. I'm going to share with you my word, but I think that I would do you a disservice to to just tell you my word without inviting you through the process of how I got the word. And so it's going to be a little activation where you'll get to pause this podcast or just take a moment to breathe or even answer some of these activation questions that I've written down to be sure that you get the most out of this. What I do believe is that if you're thinking from now to December 31st, you're going to get the most that God has and you live the most effective you can. Get a word, stand on that word, because there are going to be things that will come to resist you, that'll push against what you're trying to live out from God. But when you get a word from him, that word will stay you. It'll become an anchor for you. And that's what I would say. I asked the Father to give me a word that will anchor my life. And I want to share with you the word that the Lord gave me. It's this heart posture first, that I want God to enjoy me more than he uses me. I heard this guy, we were actually on a trip to Africa. He mentioned this in a press conference as to how he's able to write these beautiful songs of the Lord. And I do believe that the way I continue to bring fresh content that allows women to know how to live their lives in devotion toward the Lord, I have to continue to live in a space where the Lord enjoys me as a daughter before I am a podcaster, a woman in power, a pastor, all of those other things. I need to be a good daughter first, where I just come into this space and I can just enjoy him and he can enjoy me. And that from that place, he'll be able to use me. And it leads me to the word that the Lord has given me and the anchor verse that he gave me for my life. And I'll walk you through how I got there after I share the word. He gave me something that's a little different. It's kind of a phrase. He said that I would live in a season of disciplined overflow. A season of disciplined overflow. When many people think of overflow, they're like, oh yeah, let's party. Like, it's all of this abundance and it's all of this beauty. And it's just like milk and honey, rainbows and cherries. But the Lord really slowed me down. And I think that it's so important that he did. He gave me the front end of the process that helped me understand, how do I live a life of consistent overflow in 2026? It will come from a position of a disciplined life. Before I'm able to see more, I have to cut back. I have to steward. I have to manage what he's placed in my hand in a way that he's able to see that if he trusts me with a little, and I do well with that little, then he can entrust me with more. And there's a particular verse that I am actually living in that at the beginning doesn't sound good, but I do believe that it anchors this whole idea of discipline overflow for us. I want you to turn your Bibles or grab your phone to Hebrews 12 and 11. And I'm going to back up to the B clause of verse 10. It says, but God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in his holiness. I'll say it again. But God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in his holiness. What I love about that is many times we've been disciplined in our lives and we felt like it was just painful. Or like, I don't even feel like my mama should have did that, or she didn't understand. And every time we didn't feel like it was good for us, what I can tell you about a perfect God is that in the moments where he disciplines you, because he fashion formed you and created you, he knows exactly what is necessary for you to push away, for you to silence, for you to continue to do consistently, to bring about the fullness of who he created you to be from the very beginning. And so all that you will do in terms of the discipline that God gives you will allow you to share in this holiness. And holiness, a lot of people get it twisted like it's no lipstick and long skirts. It's not that. Holiness is a posture of being set apart for God's use. It's this other than nature where you're not living common, where you recognize that there's something specific on you. And I'll say that to every woman that is watching this podcast. God has designed you uniquely for something specific, and that is to be other than. You're not like anybody else. I don't care how many people do what you do. Nobody will do it in the earth as God has intended for you to do it. And that's a part of you sharing in his holiness. Holiness is not just behavioral. It is the nature of God. And so when you share in his holiness, you're sharing in who he is, his nature. The Bible talks about how he made us in his image and his likeness. And that's my prayer for you. How do I look and bear the image of God better? You do that by allowing the Lord to discipline you in a way that is specific to you. I actually saw a trainer really recently, and he told me that many trainers will just carbon copy and put on every one of their different participants exactly the same exercises. And he said everybody's everybody's body composition is made up uniquely. And if I just do that, you might get results, but you might not get the most effective results for what you put in. And I want you to get the best. And so he said that you want to be sure that when I'm disciplining your body or I'm training your body, that I do it in a way that is a very personalized prescription for you. And that's what I believe that as you're pausing to hear from God, and as he gives you this word, as he's disciplining you again, he's doing that with all of your future in mind. He's doing that with every word that he's promised, that he's declared, that won't return void in mind. He's doing that with your frustrations in mind. Because maybe you're at the top of this year and you're watching this podcast because you've gotten to the end of yourself where you're saying, like, God, I've done it my way long enough. I need something brand new. I need a new voice, a new coach. I need something else to lean into. And he goes on in verse 11, which is my anchor verse for this year of this discipline overflow. He says, no discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful. And I'll just agree with you. I want you to know that when you discipline your body, when you're starting to cut back on what you eat, you stop eating them Debbie cakes that you love so much, it's not easy to see other people doing what you would desire to do. But I'll ask you this, do they have the results that you want to have? Very often we're going along to get along, but we don't want the results of what we see. And so my prayer is that though we recognize that the discipline may not be enjoyable while it's happening and it's painful, we'll remember this next part of this verse. But afterwards, there will be a peaceful harvest of rightful living for those who are trained in this way. He says there'll be a peaceful harvest. The peaceful harvest is the abundant life, the overflow that I'm talking about, where I'm not striving or stressing to be able to live in the fullness of who God has created me to be. I'm able to sit fully in who God has made me because I have done the things that he's told me to do by instruction. I've obeyed his word. And as I have done that, it makes easy. He gives these gifts without sorrow that he talks about when I'm able to do the thing that he's prescribed specifically for me. And so I'm believing this year that I'm going to live in this delight that'll come by way of me continually choosing to live a disciplined life. That means for me, I'm going to have to rise earlier than my house get up. This is my particular lifestyle. Maybe you don't have children yet and you don't have to navigate that part. But for me, I want to start my day with God. I want to live throughout my day with God, and I want to end my day with God. And for me to be able to do that, that means that I'm going to have to rise early and sometimes even go to bed late to be sure that I get that time with him. And so that's a part of the discipline that'll create the overflow so that when I'm in conversation with people where I need to pour into them or I need to show up for them, I have something to give them because I've input something. And so I'll tell you a couple things about as we recognize when we're calling to God or we're making a decision to subscribe to his particular prescription of discipline for us. When you do that, you are posturing yourself. When you're calling to him, you're making a decision that I'm going to pull away. I'm going to pray. And when you pray to a God that says, I will answer you and give you great and unsearchable things that you do not know, you're going to hear things that only God will know about you because he knows not just your today, but he knows your future. He knows what you're heading toward. He knows the things that you actually are even bold enough to say because you're too afraid that people might think you're crazy, or the dreams that you've had, they might not even believe that they're possible. But God, the God that gave you those dreams, he wants to fulfill those dreams. And the way that he does that is by us connecting in prayer. I tell people often, and I think I heard it from like a Miles Monroe in the past, that prayer is when we're inviting divine intervention on earth. I don't just want what I can produce in the natural. I want the super that we put on top of my natural, where if I walk into an interview, I want favor to be on me. When I actually have to love on my children, I want God to help me know things that I would not know in the natural about my children and about their future and about their future spouses and about what they're going toward. And so when we pause to pray, it helps us to know these great and unsearchable things that we wouldn't know. But it also invites us, after we're calling and we're hearing from him, into a posture where we get to fast. I am actually in a 21-day fast with our church, Forward City, and I would love for you to jump in. It is not too late. We just started on January 4th, and so we'll be doing this for 21 days. I want you, whenever you watch this podcast, I don't care if you jump in on day 2020, you can get even one more day in. I want you to make sure that you jump in. The descriptions and the details about this fast is in the description box. I want to be sure that you jump in because a lot of us, we're not able to live out this sustained life of fasting and prayer and intercession because we try to do it in isolation. I'm inviting you not to have to do that. I want to invite you into a place of fasting and prayer where you're able to hear from God, but you're able to do that in community. And this fasting is an abstaining from anything that will block your communication, that will block your ability to hear God clearly. When I talked about that daily bread and that daily devotion that you're supposed to have with Him, fasting pushes away everything that crowds out your ability to hear God or to want something more than you want this undivided devotion with Him. And so that could be food, and very often biblically, that was pushing away your plate. It was pushing away many things dietary so that you're able to cleanse yourself. You're able to allow your metabolism to reset. You're able to put your body in the best position, in a health position, to be able to hear from God and to be clear. But also, I would tell you, because in the Bible, they didn't have TikTok, they didn't have Instagram, they didn't have every TV show on Netflix, that if any of those other things are coming in the way of you actually having this undivided devotion, I'm not sure what your particular prescription will be from God, but whatever it is that He's asking of you, if there's anything that you find in this particular 21 days of fasting and prayer that is blocking your time of intercession with Him and praying with Him, I would ask you to add that to your fast. One of the things that I actually have to add to my fast is making sure that I don't make it a diet. And a diet is where I'm abstaining from food, but I'm not adding anything back. And so for me, I've had to commit to myself that as I'm taking away from the natural, that I'm adding spiritually. That means I'm getting in my word every single day. And I mean, whether that is listening to something on Audible, or if that's letting my Bible play over me in the car, or that's getting in this room early in the morning, I want to be sure that I'm adding to myself so that I am not starving myself, but I'm feeding another part of myself to let my flesh know that it has to live in surrender to my spirit, because whatever you feed grows. And in this time of prayer and fasting, I want you to feed your spirit more than your flesh, so that your spirit man is the thing that's always in control. And so that's what we want to do with fasting. But we also want to be sure that this is a time of intercession. And I love this because in a world that is all about me, and my word from God, and what God gonna do in my life and in my children's life, we can get very self-focused. And as a believer, that is not the way God has created us to live. When you invite intercession to be a part of prayer and fasting, you're saying, God, I'm not just praying for myself. I'm standing in the gap for every person you've attached me to. In my particular case, I get to stand in the gap for all the people that call Forward City their home. That's all of the believers that I have the opportunity to shepherd as a co-pastor of Forward City Church. That's my children. I'm praying about their futures, about their present day. I'm praying about the spiritual daughters that the Father's given me. All the women of permission that have joined me on this journey of living out freedom. That includes you. I'm asking the Lord, how do I motivate them? How do I teach them and show them how to live out this life of freedom? One of the reasons I feel that I exist is because I feel like a lot of people have told you what to do. You're supposed to fast, you're supposed to pray, you're supposed to have intercession, but a lot of times we don't even know how to do that. I really do believe with my heart to teach that I have a unique ability to show people how, and that they're able to live that out consistently. And so my prayer is that as you're joining for prayer fasting, that you add intercession and you pray for that lost loved one that you've been hoping that would come to know the Lord. You pray for the sick. Maybe you pray for our world, our nation, our president, our government has had a lot going on. I'm making sure that in this time where I'm setting aside time for myself, that I'm also recognizing my position in the earth. I exist not just for me, but for everything attached to me. One of the big things I'll tell you that I'm praying for is Permission Conference 2026 that is happening in April. I actually convened, and it had been an annual thing up until this past year. We did not do it in 2025, but we're bringing it back in this year, April 24th through 26th. There will be women that have made a decision that after taking care of the children, after making sure everybody else is okay, that I recognize for me to be my best self, I have to pause in moments to be sure that I'm being poured into, that I'm being refueled, that I'm getting vision, and even recreating, pulling away for a moment and just hear from God to be sure that I'm everything that He's created me to be. And that's exactly what Permission Conference 2026 will be. It'll be a time of 3 days where we just pull away, we shut out the noise. You bring your auntie and your cousin, as long as they're not going to get in the way of you being able to hear God. I would love for you to join us for that. And we are bringing some of the most dynamic voices of our time. Jackie Hill Perry will be there, Nona Jones, Katie O'Raya. We have Roosevelt Stewart, Naomi Rain. It's so T. Renee Glenn, Prophet told me. There's so many people that we're bringing into that space. Anatoria. I could go on and on and on because I do believe this. In order for you to be the best, you have to receive from the best. And I'm bringing the greatest thought provokers of our time and people, if I'll be honest, that are just actually walking it like they talk it. I am one of those girls that believe in authenticity and realness. And I don't want you to just tell me something good. I want you to tell me how you live this out. And so that's why I'm inviting these particular people. But that's a lot of what my intercession is going toward. I want to make sure that if you make a decision to buy that ticket and you show up, that you get everything you came for and something extra, that the Lord does exceedingly and abundantly what you were expecting for permission. And so, yeah, I'm praying for y'all. But I want you to be invited into that same posture of intercession. Intercession is the ability to stand in the gap, because there are some people that don't recognize how much they need God, but maybe you recognize it, and God is giving you that ability to stand in that gap to be able to do that for them. And so those are just a couple of the things and the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. But I want to jump into some of the activations that these were questions that I was asking myself, because I believe this: if you're not continuing to think about what you're thinking about, there are often times that the enemy could be using your mental capacity and what you're saying to yourself against you. One of the greatest attacks that I find that I've had over the years was not external; it was internal. The things that I had programmed myself to believe that I could never do this, or man, God, that's only for certain people, or I can only speak in intimate settings. And God says who told you that? And many times as I started to write down, or I began to journal what I was thinking about, sometimes we don't think about what we're thinking about. We don't recognize that we're telling ourselves these negative scripts. And if you don't recognize it, if you don't uncover it, you can never allow the Lord to heal that. And so one of the things that I asked myself as I was praying about this word of discipline overflow, my question to myself was, what burden or prompting keeps coming up in my prayer time? What is God saying to you over and over again? And prayer time is not always like down on this floor with your Bible and, with a hymn playing. Sometimes you're just moving through life, and the Bible talks about praying without ceasing. You're moving through life, but you're getting ready to go into a meeting. You're like, God, what do I say in this meeting? Fill my mouth with something. And in those moments, he'll just continue to highlight something. Funny thing that God did, and you wouldn't imagine this would have been the place that the Lord really uncovered discipline overflow. There were words and continuous messages that I was receiving for my birthday. My birthday was just this past December, and people kept just telling me like there was double blessing coming my way, and I'm speaking overflow over your life. And the Lord had already been talking to me about this disciplined life where I would see more than I've seen before. He began to speak this particular thing. He said, I'm declaring that the Greene household would live in next level wealth. Next level wealth is not just more money. It's a different countenance. It's a different posture, a different way of life. But you don't get that without recognizing that God has burdened you with something that he's continuing to say. I can't even tell you at this point the number of times I've heard God speak about this next level wealth, or even about my ability to slow down, to be disciplined enough that it would produce overflow for my life. And so I want you to ask yourself that question. What is God burdening you and prompting you over and over in your prayer time? What is he saying over and over again? And the second question that I want for you to make sure that you jot down, maybe after this pod, you take a moment and you just go sit and have a moment to ask yourself these questions, but you take the moment to journal and write down what he says back. One of the biggest issues that I have seen, and it was a part of my problem in my early times of praying to God, is I would talk and tell God my to-do list and all the things that I wanted, but I would never get silent. I was afraid of the silence. I was afraid, like, am I doing this right? It was very uncomfortable because I wasn't used to it. But the silence is the place where God speaks, is where you can hear him. And so my prayer is that you would get quiet enough to ask these questions that he could actually respond. One of the second questions that I asked that he brought to light was, what area is God highlighting, number one, to rebuild? There are things in your life that you've placed, that you put down and you stop putting your hands to. That maybe you put on the bookshelf because you got disappointed or you got discouraged. He told you to start the podcast. Maybe he told you to start the business. Maybe he told you to start building a lifestyle of health. Maybe he's called you to another level of wealth like me. I want you to start to rebuild on that. Maybe there are mentors that you need to be calling on, and you start to build your life in a different way. The first question is, what is he highlighting for you to rebuild? What do you need to put your hands back to? But this is the one that generally is most challenging, and I just lived a major season of it. What is he asking you to release? Many times we don't slow down enough to recognize that even a God of goodness can ask us to put down something that might have been good for one season, that served us in one season, that could start to take from us in another season, that he might not be prioritizing anymore. And so sometimes we have to let it go. Sometimes we have to put that down. And so I want to ask the question, what do I need to rebuild, put my hands to, release, and also refine? There are some things that we're doing that God just might want to do a little tweak to. Maybe he wants you to be braver, or maybe he wants you to lean on him more than you're leaning on people. And so that would be my second question, that I would want you to take moments to ask. The third thing that I will tell you is that you need to be sure that you get an anchor verse. Remember, I told you there's going to be something in this time of these 12 months that is going to try to rock your world, to get you off the mark of what God has said about you. But when you have an anchor verse, when I can go back to that, this reality that the discipline might not feel good in the moment, but afterwards it will produce a righteous harvest. It will produce a harvest of peace. It will bring this discipline overflow, that in the moments where I want to quit, I won't quit, because I'm anchored to the word that God has given me. And so I want you to ask Lord, not just what the word is, but what word in the Bible is he giving me to anchor my life with? And the fourth thing that I will ask you is, what spiritual warfare or resistance, as it pertains to the word that he's giving you, should you prepare for? If I'll tell you, and if I'm honest, what I have been preparing myself for in a season where God is asking me to allow him to enjoy me more than he used me, or in a season where he's asking for undivided devotion or a disciplined overflow, I have to be very, very cognizant of being distracted. Many times we don't recognize that distraction is also a form of spiritual warfare. If I get caught off guard and I start looking this way when God has called me to look this way, I will get off the mark. And even one small movement away from what God wants is not the fullness of the obedience that he wants from me. And so I want you to be careful to be able to call out things that are coming forth to distract you, to take you off your mark. Or maybe it's people's voice, because you're a people pleaser. The things that people say to you over and over again are stopping you from being everything that the Lord has called you to be. You got to be prepared for the spiritual warfare. We say at Forward City often that attack is a sign of affirmation. It's affirming the thing that God has called you to. And so prepare for it. Be prepared that the Lord will have to strengthen you in the thing that the enemy is going to come to fight you against. And the last thing that I want to ask, that I want to make sure that you take time to be sure that you're leaning into in this time, is that God is going to give you a word. He's going to give you an anchor verse. You're going to be prepared for resistance. But how will you live this out in community? How will you pause to live out whatever the word, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe he's saying live in courage. And you feel like courage for you is like, okay, God, I can do this thing with you by myself. But no. Courage is where you live out loud and you do the thing that God is calling you anywhere he calls you. And so what I can tell you in my own life is I've been able to live in much more consistency when I do it in relationship with other people. When I tell somebody, when I put myself out here on blast on this podcast and tell you that I have to live in discipline overflow, I'm holding myself accountable. I'll tell all my spiritual daughters that I'm walking with, or my mentors that I'm walking with, my spiritual father, this is what the Lord has called me to. And so in any moment that they're not seeing me do that, they have total access to say like, hey, didn't God say this to you? And when you have people to call you back to it, even in a moment where you might detour, you might fall, you'll get to be called back into the thing that God has said to you from the very beginning. What I do believe is if you'll pause to have the time to just look over those 5 questions, to ask yourself those questions, you'll walk away with your own word, with your own anchor, and you'll live a life of being guided and not guessing. You'll live a life anchored where at the end, in December 31st, you'll be proud that you lived out something in consistency that you will not if you don't give time and intention of undivided devotion for the Lord to speak to you. What I know is that the God that will create you is a God that has purpose for your life. And my prayer is that you'll lean all the way into that. As we're wrapping up, I do want to make sure that you remember to jump in on all these things with Forward City for fasting and prayer. All of that information will be in the box, in the description box below. But I also want to tell you this other thing that is really near and dear to my heart. Many women, I think it's over like 400 women that have taken part in this over the time that I've been doing it. And I started back in COVID in 2020. Permission Room is a thing that we're bringing back on February 1st. It is a mentorship program that I started. And I have seen women that would would submit a video telling me all the reasons that they're afraid and all the reasons that they cannot be everything that God has said, that after they go through these 6 weeks of intensity where I'm showing them how I read my word, how I fast, how I pray, how I use my voice, they walk out liberated. They walk out in fullness. They walk out not just with a certificate, they walk out with a different lifestyle that they're able to live out in their own lives. And I'm inviting you into that. If you've been saying, like, I tried this on my own, but I just need a little help. I need coaching, but I also need community and accountability that will help me live this out consistently. I do believe that Permission Room would be a destined place for you. And we're opening up applications again after 2 years on February 1st. And so I would love to see your application. We only leave our applications open for 3 days because the demand is great. And I wanted to make sure that this is an intimate space. I'll be right here in this room when we do Permission Room. I'll be in my bunny. It's not fancy, but what it is effective because we just pull back the layers. We kind of quiet the noise, but we get to know a version of ourselves that we do not know without coming close to the Lord. And so I invite you to be a part of Permission Room. Make sure you get that application in on February 1st. Make sure you're in the Permission app because all of the updates and information about what we're doing on Permission Talk as well as with Permission app, with Permission Room and all the other things will happen inside of the Permission app. That's the place where we live out community, where we don't just start a thing, but we're able to stay in the thing that the Lord has called us to. I'm so excited about you living a life that is different from the life you've already lived before. I believe that there's a thing that only God can say to you, and it's going to happen by you pausing to hear from him. I pray that this podcast blessed you, that there was something that you're going to be able to take away that will transform your lifestyle of freedom. And I pray that if it blessed you, that you would like, comment, subscribe me. Let me know what affected you, what was powerful for you, what was the thing that was like, oh yeah, PJ, that was for me. Dr. Jackie, that was for me, and I want to share it with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to this page so that you don't miss out on any of the things. I believe we got some surprises in store. Maybe we might be dropping something else extra for you all as we're living out this lifestyle of devotion. I did do a Devo that's 90 days that I do believe would also help. It's called Remain in His Love. You can pick up this 90-day devotional and start your first 90 days of this year with Remain in His Love, where I do believe that if you walk out the different tenets that I teach you how to live out in that book, you'll live out a different lifestyle of freedom. All right. I love y'all. Stay tuned for the next episode of Permission Talk. I'll see you right back here. All right. Love you. Bye. I pray that this episode blessed you. If you had something that really spoke to your heart, I want you to comment below. We're always looking for the things that were really impactful to make sure that we're giving you more and more content. If you had a question, drop that in the comments below. But if something blessed you, make sure that you're sharing this content with other ladies that you know that needs this information, as well as making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, because we're always bringing fresh content over and over again that I don't want you to miss out on. Another way to really stay involved with what we're doing for Permission Talk is jumping in the Permission app. As you see, I'm really cozy and comfortable in my prayer room, and I wanted to make sure you know about all the ways that I'm connecting with women to live out a lifestyle of freedom. One of those ways is having Devo time and actually gathering with other women that are making the decision to do that. And we do that in the Permission app. If you search Dr. Jackie Permission in any of the different app platforms, you will find Permission, and that's a space where I'm able to share weekly different things that the Lord is speaking to me in Dr. Jackie's journal. I'm telling ladies different tips on how to be a good mom, or what I'm doing with Bible devos with my children, or maybe even tips with marriage. I share all the good stuff there. So if you do want some of that information, make sure you jump into the app. If you want sisterhood where you're able to walk this out with other women, Permission app is the place to be. And I'll also say, if you're near the Columbia area, you need to join us for Forward City. I'm not just Dr. Jackie. I'm actually a local pastor as well, and it is the joy of my life to be able to serve those people. And so if you're near this area, Charlotte or Spartanburg or wherever you are, I need you to join us in Columbia, South Carolina. We believe in seeing the unchurched and overchurched move forward with God, and I believe that you can be a part of that if you're close to this area. Really excited about all that the Lord is up to, and if you like this freedom content, make sure that you jump in. The Lord also gave me a couple digital resources that even if you're not into podcasting, but you like to read, well, you're watching the pod, but I pray that if you like to read or anything like that, I've written 2 books. One is Permission to Live Free. And this was kind of like my breakout where I broke the silence to say, like, this is how God has made me, and I can live precisely and fully in the version that God created me to be, and I don't have to conform. And so if you have some of those people pleasing or getting so comfortable that you don't live in the fullest version of yourself, Permission to Live Free is a book that you want to get your hands on, as well as Remain in His Love, which is what this podcast was all about. Make sure you grab the book and live out these 90 days of devotions, because what I do believe is after 90 days of living it out, they generally say it only takes 21 days to create a new habit. Well, if you do this for 90 days, I believe that you will live out a brand new lifestyle of freedom, and that's what it's all about for us right here in this space. All right, join us back for Permission Talk next time. I can't wait to see you again.
I wanna